Lainika Johnson. Welcome to the Two Soka podcast. We are thrilled to have you on the podcast. I'm Sophia Grant.
And I'm Judy Grant.
And we are two sisters of a certain age, conversations with a therapist and a doctor. So let's jump right in. Lainika Johnson, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I'm Lainika Johnson. I'm a woman of a certain age. I'm 48 years old. I'm a mother of two, divorced mother of two. I have a business that I started 6 years ago that I built from the ground up. It's a trash management and logistics company that I started basically because I was in a position, I was working for a company, and I realized that my customers needed more than I was able to give them. And I also needed the flexibility of being available for my children as they were growing up. And being tied to a corporate desk was not allowing me that flexibility. So I started my own company, and I've been doing that for the last 6 years. And we have grown to 4 markets. We are bi-coastal. We are on the West Coast.
Oh my God, that's incredible.
And I employ 30 people. And I'm just so blessed. I mean, I never, I have to give all glory to God, because I never would have imagined. I knew that it would work, but I didn't know that we would be as successful as we've become.
So tell us a little bit about Trashlogic. And I know a little bit about it, but, keep in mind that this seems to me that this would be a male-dominated field. How did you feel going into this male-dominated field as a woman in her 40s, as a Black woman? Tell us about that, and tell us about the company.
Okay, so it's definitely been a journey. So let me start by saying I never saw myself in the trash industry, right? I think, Sophia, when I met you, I probably was doing television, and I did that for several years.
She was like a caterer, B. Smith lifestyle person. I thought she would get her own magazine. And then when you moved to Arizona, I would see clips of you talking about back to school and cooking and things like that. So how did you make the jump from like lifestyle stuff to waste management?
Yeah, so I was a lifestyle expert. I had my own weekly segment on our local ABC affiliate. I started. I was the president of a nonprofit, and I started doing a lot of public speaking. And when I went through my divorce, I started to feel like a fraud. I felt like my whole life was built around this family persona, this wife and mother situation that I had, built my life around. And I was cooking on TV. I was talking about back to school stuff. I was talking about, how to manage your household, all of these things. And I started to feel like it was a lot to put together. I produced my own show. So it was a lot to put together. It started to feel like I'm not really being authentic to what my life looks like right now. And one day I just woke up and I just resigned from everything. I emailed my producer and I said, I'm not going to do it anymore. I emailed the nonprofit and I said, I resign immediately. And I just decided that I was just going to stay home with my kids. I'm going to stay home with my kids and I'm going to figure out what's next for me.
Okay.
And I did that. I did that for almost a year. My mother, I went through a really dark time. During that time, I wasn't completely divorced. I was, it was during the separation time. So when my divorce was finally done, my mother said, why don't you come home? And I was in Arizona, and home was California. And I said, I don't know if I want to come back to Sacramento. I never saw myself going back to Sacramento. I said, but I'll come home for a visit. Mm-hmm. I'll come and visit. So I went back home for a visit. And this is the craziest story. I was staying in the embassy suites. I was walking across the walking across the lobby in the morning on my way out to see my parents, and this woman reached out and grabbed my arm, just a random woman. And, I was startled. So, I said, "Excuse you." And she said, "I'm so sorry. I didn't mean to startle you." She said, "But I saw you earlier and I wanted to talk to you. There was just something about you and I wanted to just chat with you. Have you ever done sales before?" And I said, "Well, yeah, I own a marketing company," because that's what I did, through television. I own a marketing company. I said, "Yeah, I own a marketing company. I've been doing sales." And she said, "I have a sales opportunity. Have you ever heard of, this trash company?" And I said, "No, I've never heard of it." And she said, "Well, we have a sales opportunity." She said, "I promise you, you'll never have," because she saw my face. She said, "I promise you, you'll never touch trash. I promise you." And I said, "Okay, this is, really odd." She said, "I know it's strange. Just, give me a few minutes just to explain." So she explained the opportunity, and I said, "Okay, well, I'm on my way out." And she said, "Well, I'm here with my sales manager. Can you just talk to him?" She was the area sales director. She said, "Can you just talk to him for a minute?" And I said, "I'll talk to him." So he was just as surprised as I was. He was kind of looking like, "Who is this lady, and why are you bringing her to me?" And so, we chatted for a bit, and she invited me to come to the dump the next day. And I said, "Really, you want me to?" She said, "Yeah, just come over, just kind of check us out." I said, "Okay." So I did. I went over. When I got there, when I tell you it was the most surreal experience of my life. When I got there, the general manager was in the conference room. Um, the operations manager was in the conference room. All of the management team was in the conference room. And they pretty much started selling me on taking this opportunity. And I told them, "I don't even live here and I've never done this kind of work before. I don't even know what's going on." Like, what are we doing? So they made me an offer I couldn't refuse. They moved me back to California. And you have to realize I didn't really have anything going on. I was just at home taking care of my kids.
Right.
And I said, "Okay." So they moved me to California. I took this opportunity, and within 3 months, I broke every record that they ever had.
Oh
Wow.
my gosh, I just got
Wow.
goosebumps.
It was crazy. And I found my home. I said, "This is something I can do. This is real. This is tangible. Trash is never going away. I feel comfortable. I can do this." And I really, really felt like it was something that I was called to do. I could have a conversation with people that was, legitimate. This is something that you need. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about how I can solve your problem.
My sisters told me about you, so it's really great to actually see you and learn a little
Thank
bit
you.
more about this. Um, I want to back up for just a second because you mentioned your divorce.
Hmm.
And thank you for sharing that because I am also a divorced person. Um,
Okay.
and I'm calling this out because I just want to normalize that experience and let people know that it's a struggle, it's difficult. However, you can find your path. You can find a way throughout it.
Yes.
I've been blessed to find a wonderful husband, but I just had to just stop for a second and acknowledge that. And thank you for sharing that piece with us because I think it's part of who you are. That experience has led you to
Absolutely.
this. So sorry, just
Yes.
had a little
Yes.
tangent, but I just
No,
had to
thank
call
you
that
for
out.
bringing. No, I thank you for highlighting that because I tell my story a lot, and I think that people are focused on the fact that I built this multi-million dollar company, and they're not focused on the fact that I lost everything. I had to start over.
Mm-hmm.
I, losing, I. This is not to say that I regret getting divorced because I think that was what was best for me. But losing my family was huge, right? That's a big transition. No one gets married to get divorced. No one wants that.
Right, right.
And that's a big change in your life. And that is a big adjustment, whether it's for the best or not.
Agreed.
And I think that people, we are so, triumphant. "Oh yes, I made it," but really, really, like you said, normalizing that experience, that it's hard and it takes a long time to rebuild from that. and understanding.
Absolutely. But I think, having you here today is just, one of those triumphant stories and just sharing
Yes,
with people that they can rebuild. So
yes,
thank you. All right. So
yes.
I
There's
kind of took
light
us off
on the other
on a bit of a different direction.
She's a
side.
therapist, so she's all about the warm fuzzies.
No,
Right.
I love it. No, I love it because there is light on the other side, right?
Yeah,
There's,
absolutely.
there is, there's a blessing on the other side. So yeah, thank you.
So let me ask you. I love how you joined us in saying, I too am a woman of a certain age. Um,
Hmm.
did you find that that made it harder for you to break into this new world, this
Yes.
new career, because you weren't 20 something, you weren't even 30 something? What was that like for you?
Being in trash, it made it hard and it also made it easy. So the reason that it made it easy is because trash is old, right? Trash is something that's been around forever. So it's something that everyone understands. And being of a certain age, I felt very comfortable having very concrete business conversations about people's waste streams and people's problems.
Hmm.
But sales is a young man's, young woman's game, right? People are
Right.
looking for the young, hot, cute girl to
Right.
come in.
Pencil skirt and high heels.
Yes, and I'm not ashamed to say that I definitely in my younger days played on that, when I was in sales. And in my 40s, I brought the younger girls with me to some sales calls just to get in the door.
Right.
I'm not ashamed to say that I did that. So it made it easy, but it made it hard as well. But being a woman and a Black woman in a white male dominated industry has been very interesting. So while once I started breaking records, obviously people loved me, right? Oh, I was invited to everything. I was,
Right.
I was sought after. Everyone was trying to recruit me. But once I started my own company, it became a different story. I'm one of the only Black founders in this industry,
Wow.
and specifically one of the only Black female founders in this industry.
Hmm.
And I took a picture when I attended the Waste Expo, I think in 2018 or 2019, and they have a wall of fame. And on the wall of fame are all of the people who have won, right, the Waste Hauler of the Year
Right.
award every year for the last 100 years,
Hmm.
and they all have gray hair and they all have white skin, and
Right.
they're all male. So there's no one there that looks like me in any way, shape, or form
Right.
up on that wall. So you can imagine what it's been like for me. I've literally walked into meetings where people have turned their back on me while I was talking.
Oh my God.
There have been, yeah, there's been meetings where people have just said, "Oh, absolutely not. I'm not going to work with you." I mean, without even giving me an opportunity to pitch.
You said, I think you said, like, I'm in trash, the trash business. Okay, so
Hmm.
I can see like trash in my house. I know about my trash bins outside. Can you, and I know
Hmm.
that that's not it. Can you tell us a little bit about what you
No.
mean by I'm in trash?
So that's the interesting thing. So when I was approached to get into this industry, I said, I mean, what is there to trash? You put your trash outside, somebody comes and gets it, right? It goes away. And most of us think of trash that way. Like there's trash fairies that come and it disappears. So there's a whole cycle to trash, right? And there's so many industries that support trash. So my company, I'm more of a waste logistics company. So I'm not waste management. I'm not Republic Services. I'm not one of those companies that comes by your house and picks up the trash and takes it to what is called the transfer station. And most people don't even know that there's a transfer station that happens before it goes to the dump, right? So there's a transfer station and then the trash taken there, and then it goes to the dump from there. My company actually goes to apartment buildings and we sort the trash, and then we actually manage the relationship that that apartment building has with the waste management or the Republic Services, and we make sure that their contract is correct, and we make sure that they're being billed correctly, and we make sure that their trash is in the right container, and we make sure that the people who live there are putting their trash where it's supposed to go, and that the recycling, all of those things that
Hmm.
go along with making sure their trash goes where it's supposed to go. So we call it cradle to grave management is what
Okay.
we do.
Okay. Thank you for that.
There's so many industries within waste management that support the whole industry. So I could literally change companies every year and never run out of places to work. There's so many places to work.
And I want to say that Lanika's company is called Trashlogic. And tell us how you were able to expand to the different markets. I see you're always traveling, you're always in a car. Tell us about that.
I'm always traveling. So we're bi-coastal, like I said. So we started in the San Francisco Bay Area. We expanded to Sacramento, which is where I live, and then to Reno, Nevada, to Seattle, Washington, and then to Washington, D.C. The way that we were able to expand is really through relationships. So my company works with property management companies. So if I have a relationship with, your company, right? So say we have your grant property management company, and I have a relationship with you, and you have a property in Los Angeles, you might have a property also in Seattle. So, we do a great job for you. You're going to have us, on your property in Seattle as well. So we'll move out there. So that's how we're able to expand.
Okay, so since you're on the road and meeting salespeople and selling your business and things like that, how do you take care of yourself? How do you make sure that you aren't running yourself ragged?
Not well. Not well. So I'm getting better at it. I'm very focused right now in my life on slowing down and on minimizing my footprint. For the last few years, I've spent a lot of time just trying to spread myself everywhere. I think most people focus on not trying to spread themselves too thin, and I think I was trying to spread myself as thin as possible. So I had a house in Arizona. I had a house in Sacramento. I had a house in DC. I had a place in Seattle. I had a house in Fremont. So I was everywhere. And I literally was maintaining, I mean, more so than having all of those offices in all of those places.
Uh-huh.
I was maintaining households in all of those places and dragging my children all over the country.
Right.
And they were, during COVID,
Right.
I thought that was great. I said, oh, yeah, they can travel with me. They can go everywhere. They got really tired of that
Right.
really quick.
Yeah.
And my daughter graduated during COVID and went to college. So for her, it was like, oh, thank God I can get away from her.
Right. Right.
I can go to college. I can finally be, in one place. But my son, I've dragged him everywhere. And I realized, and, this is just to be very transparent. Once my daughter got to college, she, was honest with me and she started therapy. And she said, Mom, we need a place that is just ours. We need a place to come home to. So I recently bought a house. I bought a house this year that's just supposed to be just home for us. So I've been working this last year just to minimize my footprint. So, I got rid of the house in Arizona. I got rid of the place in Fremont. I'm still trying to untangle myself from, my place in DC. Just trying to get to a place where this is home. This is, home, and this is where my kids know this is where they can come to, and this is where their rooms are. It's where all their things are. So it's been difficult. I've been working like this since I was 12 years old. I had a record deal when I was 15 years old. So I've never known anything other than just kind of working and just getting up and going, reteaching myself how to, or not even reteaching, I'm just teaching myself, how to just be.
As a therapist, I often talk to the parents of my clients about creating schedules and having structure, and recognizing that structure allows our children to feel grounded. They know where they're going to be. They know what time what time is dinner, when they have to get up and go to school, so on and so forth. And so I can, as you're talking about, the challenges that your children have had, I can see it because they might not have known one day to the next. You were there. You were the stabilizing factor, which is
Huge.
the most important piece. But also for them knowing where they're going to lay their head that night, does a bit of a number on you. So I'm glad that your daughter had the wherewithal to recognize that she needed a little extra support and that she had enough. She knew your relationship. She trusted your relationship enough so that she could come back and say, Mom, that was kind of hard. So kudos to
Yeah.
her for,
Yeah.
advocating for herself and for her brother, and quite honestly for you too, because you also need
Hmm.
that structure just so you can maintain your personal well-being.
And I'll say this for other type A people. I was structured. I would say that the scheduling part was I think it was also to the extreme because before I started catering, before I started all that, I was a project manager. So when I had my children, I put them on a spreadsheet. So our lives were run on a spreadsheet, right? So we, so everything was very, very scheduled. I mean, laundry is done on a schedule on at a certain time. Everything is done, very, very scheduled. So I thought that they were fine,
Mm-hmm.
but that was not fine for them.
Right.
I thought it was because I said, you guys know where we're going to be. You know that on Thursday we'll be in Arizona. That should be fine because
Right.
that's
Right.
where, but you know, my daughter said, I don't even know where Pinky is. Where is my stuffed animal? I don't know what house that's in. Things like that
Mm-hmm.
where, I didn't think about.
Right.
Like they just felt like they were spread all over the place. So it's a good point. And I can't get that back, and all I can do now is tell other moms, learn from my mistakes. I can't get those years back that I was dragging my kids all over the place.
Do you feel any guilt? I know as mothers, we feel guilt all the time over stuff that we thought we could have done better. And if you do feel guilt, how do you manage it? How do you forgive yourself? Because I know in your heart you thought I'm providing a life for my kids and I'm here, but how do you, are you in therapy? Have you thought of therapy? Do you need therapy?
Yeah, so I have a lot of guilt, and I've been in therapy. Yeah, I've been in therapy for for years. I don't know that I don't know that I've forgiven myself, and I don't know that I have figured it out yet. I think I'm still dealing with a lot of it because I realized that, I lost those years. I thought that I was doing the best thing for my kids. I thought I built something great for them,
Right.
and then to find that they're, 18 and 20 now, and they're saying, but you were never home.
Right.
You were never home, and somebody else picked us up from school and drove us to school. I was very much like, okay, I'm going to have a driver. I don't want you guys to be just hanging out.
Right.
I want to make sure that you guys are taken care of. So I'm thinking that I'm provided that for them, but it wasn't me.
Right.
It was somebody else. I
Right.
was making sure that they were getting to and fro. So
I think
those kinds of things, and I can't get that.
right, and I think that's kind of a universal concern when it comes to being a mother, because I personally had to work nights and things like that to provide my kids. And I thought I was doing the best I could. And then they just like, we just wanted you. And I mean, it breaks my heart because
Yeah.
you're right. And now that they're kind of independent and doing their thing, I check in with them a lot. And to the extent that my son was saying, Ma, I'm fine. And I'm like, I'm not checking up on you. I'm checking in with you. Just want to make sure you're okay. But there's that working mom guilt.
Yeah, absolutely. I too remember that. I remember having people pick up my kids from school because I was busy working. And I actually had a teacher one time say, you need to knock that off and pick up your own children. Now,
damn, I didn't hear that.
she was a little out of line, a little out of line,
Right.
How dare you?
but I get it. I get it. And as mothers, we often find ourselves, in that quandary between providing for our children and doing our best to make a very good life for them and being able to be fully present. And it's a struggle. So I hear you. I can totally relate to what you're saying. And I appreciate you just sharing your story and being vulnerable and acknowledging that it's not always easy.
So, going back from that, let's talk about some triumphs that you've had as a badass boss woman.
When I started the company in 2016, this is kind of how it went. So I said, I was working for a company, and I said, okay, nobody's doing this right. No one's really serving the customers the way they need to be serviced. They're not actually getting any value from what they're paying for, and they're still getting. There was legislation that was passed in California, and no one was really speaking to that. People were capitalizing on it by marketing to it, but no one was actually doing anything about the legislation that was affecting our customers, right? So there was recycling legislation that was penalizing customers for not recycling. So I said, I'm going to start a company that is going to take that part over for them so that they don't have to figure out how to make that work. I will take that over. I will recycle for them. I will make sure that they make that work. So I knew that it would work, but I said, let me do a year. And if I can get 12 customers in a year, so that's one customer a month, then I will have proof of concept. I'll know that this works. I'll know that people want my service. So I started September 6th, 2016. Within 1 month, I had 6 customers. Within 3 months, I had 12. within by December, so September, October, November, December. By December, I had 36 customers.
Wow.
And so I knew. I said, "Oh, okay, this is gonna work.
Works.
All right."
Yeah.
So yeah, I was like, "This is gonna work." So within my first 12 months, we had made $1 million in sales.
Stop it.
Within the first 12 months. And I said, okay, all right, we can do this.
Yeah, you
so
can.
at that point, so at that point I knew. And so we built from there, and it has been a tremendous ride. And I will tell you, there were some things that I did differently than, it wasn't my first business, right? I had a catering company, I had a marketing company. There were other companies that I had. None of the other companies I had had ever, and while they all had some level of success, none of them had ever seen this type of trajectory. And I have to say that what I did differently this time was that I went into it knowing that I was building a company and not building a hustle. I said, this is not a side hustle. This is not my hobby. I'm building a company. I'm going to employ people, and I have to do things differently. So I built it that way from day one. I did not take a salary for the whole first year. I did not touch the money. Every single dollar that I made went right back into the company. I went to the industry trade show with all of the biggest competitors in the country, just like I was one of them. Within the first 3 months of being in business, I went with them, even though I really couldn't afford it. And I put all the money that I had into it, and I showed up just like one of them. And people literally came up to my booth and said, "Whoa, we can't believe that you're here."
Wow.
And I said, "Oh yeah, we're here.
I
We're
deserve
here."
to be here.
And that is why, yes, we deserve to be here. And that trade show is what did it. That is why I grew so fast. People saw me there and said, "Oh, they're legitimate. Okay." And we took off. I mean, it was like, after that, it was like we had to start a waiting list. We couldn't take all the customers that were trying to come. So we did things very differently. So the first year, I drove Uber. I rented out a room, Airbnb in my house. I mean, I told my daughter and my son, I said, listen, we're going to be broke for a minute. I'm just going to do whatever I can just to make sure that I can keep the lights on, and keep the bills paid. But there will be no more shopping sprees. We're going to have free lunches at the school. We're going to do all these things for the first year until I can build this business. And I took my first paycheck a year later. And so, and we were able to grow from there. Yeah. And that was the difference.
That is so inspirational. I mean, from your sacrifices to, what did they say? Your test to your testimony. I mean,
Yes.
wow, Lainika. And then on top of it, what did I see? Aren't you doing some Harvard class now?
Yeah, so I just I went, I think 2 years into Trashlogic, I was accepted into the UCLA MDE program, which is the Development for Entrepreneurs program. So I did that 2 years in, and then I just got accepted into the Harvard's sustainability cohort program that starts in 2023. So I'm going to start that in January. So I'm super excited to do that. And so I'm just, I'm a lifelong learner. So I love just learning and, just adding to. So I keep going.
Now, before we wrap up, I want to ask you, are there any books that you recommend that were inspirational or that you should say, hey, read this? Just like one or two things.
Yes. So there's two books that I recommend every single entrepreneur, even every business person should read. So the first one is called Fierce Conversations. I can't think of the author right now, but it's called Fierce Conversations. I read that at the beginning of my career, and I'm telling you that it changed the way that I talk to people in business, and it really it changes the way that you can have conversations instead of emotional conversations. It's very much about this is what happened. What are we going to do about it? That's it.
The author of that book is Susan Scott.
That's it. That's it. Yeah, Fierce Conversations. Okay, and then the E-Myth. The
E-Myth.
E-Myth
Uh-huh.
by, is it Michael Gerber?
Uh-huh.
They did the E-Myth.
We can look it up. Uh-huh.
That book, I read that book at least 8 times.
Okay.
And I have it on audio too.
Okay.
That book, every single entrepreneur, if you do not have that book, then you're doing it wrong.
Okay.
Wow.
That book will transform your life as an entrepreneur.
Wow.
The E-Myth.
Well,
It's the E, the letter E.
E and then myth. Okay. Well, I mean, Lainika, thank you so much for being our first guest who doesn't have the last name of Grant.
Thank you.
And I mean, you are such an inspiration. And it's so funny because I first knew you as a mother. That's all I knew about you. Then I hear, oh, she's a lifestyle person. Oh, and now I hear you had a record deal. I mean, there's so much to know.
Yeah.
But thank you so much for being such an inspirational woman of a certain age for all girls, women, Black women, women in general. This is
People.
huge. Yeah,
For people to recognize that, they can make a change. We talked about it. My sister and I have discussed our changes in our careers and where we've gotten to today. But I think hearing from another source absolutely helps to validate that, and people can do something different. They can make a plan and they can move forward.
And thank you guys. You guys inspire me too.
Oh, thanks.
I would like to ask, can you just reiterate for us the name of your company, your website? How can we share this with our audience so they can learn a little bit more about you?
Absolutely. So, like I said, Lainika Johnson, Trashlogic.com is my website. Trashlogic LLC is my company. I also am the founder of CEO School, and that website is ceoschool.live. I teach a class every Friday on entrepreneurship, every Friday at noon.
Okay, you just can't stop, right? You can't stop.
Oh my gosh. Wow.
I can't. So CEO School.live. So join me.
Wonderful.
Thank you so much, and thank you for sharing your knowledge and being an inspiration. This is so wonderful.
Yeah. Thank you, Lainika. We wish
You're
you the
welcome.
very best.
Thank you. You
All
guys
right.
have a great day.
All right.
Take
thanks.
care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Please feel free to reach out to us at tusokapodcast@gmail.com.
Please like, comment, share, send us a question, and we are dying to hear from you. Thank you so much for listening.
Thank you. Tusoka out.
No longer network.